Hello everyone, welcome to Chasing a Murder. Before we get started, please take a moment to subscribe, like, hit the notification bell if you would like notifications whenever we have new uploads. Welcome guys. Today, when you think of a killer, what do you see? You see a Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Zodiac Killer. In my opinion, one of the prolific serial killers is Samuel Little. He claimed to have killed 93 women. But does a woman come to mind when you say these words? In most cases, no. And they should. Today, there are more and more women you are seeing in the news, in the media, online, as killers. And the sad part about this is they are getting younger and younger. And they do not appear to be the killer you envision them to be. You suspect that if you walk down a road or down the street past someone and they look like they might be a little crazy, they could be a killer. No. These people look normal. They look like babies. They look innocent. And Sidney Powell is one of the most egregious killers I know. You may or may not know this story. I don't know a whole lot about it, but there's one thing I do know, is that she went to trial for her egregious acts, and a lot of people feel she didn't get justice. So Sidney Powell, 23, will serve a decade and a half behind bars for one of the most egregious attacks on one's own parent ever. And let me tell you, the people who do follow this case, like I said, these people feel this is nowhere near the justice her mother, Brenda Powell, deserves. And by now you're thinking, what the heck did this girl do? They live in Ohio. And at the time that this incident happened, Brenda Powell was 50 years old. Her daughter, Sydney, was to attend the University of Mount Union in Alliance. Sidney Powell starts college, but guess what? She's not doing very well, and she starts making some poor grades. Sydney tried her best to keep that secret from her mother. She knew that this would not fly. Brenda, who stayed in contact with school officials, finds out through a phone call that her daughter was being kicked out of college. As Brenda is talking on the phone with the school officials, they said, or they testified in court, that they heard screams and that they immediately called authorities. Sydney, who had no history of acting out, anger issues, anything of that sort, has grabbed an iron frying pan, hit her own mother over the head with it. Because why? The motive supposedly is because she called the college and she was going to find out, that she had been suspended. No, that's not enough. She stabs her in the neck of all places 30 times. Sydney had already been lying and manipulating everyone. It seemed she was enjoying her life on the college campus without going to school. Something I found interesting. Before this happens, her father says that they have the 360 app, and it's linked to her phone, their daughter's phone, Sydney. I definitely don't want to down parents who have this app for their teens, especially their daughters, because I've used it at times. But only used it whenever they were going away a long distance or off with someone new. It appears that the parents have this 360 app on 24/7. And this makes you wonder, what would make the parents feel as if they needed to keep track of their daughter 24/7? One thing I will notice, and you will as well, is the family seems to be very, in denial about some facts. And they like to present their life as perfect. You will see the father and the grandmothers talk in the trial, and they're basically don't show any type of emotion, really, just a lot of control. They're also enablers. So they believe that this wasn't their granddaughter or daughter doing these type of things. Someone that hasn't had a history of mental illness, any kind of history of violence. They believe that she might have been schizophrenic. No schizophrenic or mental episodes before then or after. Just suddenly that day that her mother calls the college. Now, believe it or not, this girl's let out on bond to live with her grandmother, where she goes and receives psychological treatment in which she is diagnosed with schizophrenia, which I feel will be a misdiagnosis. The grandmother, which we'll listen to shortly, will mention how the medicines weren't right and they had to switch them around and do this and do that until they finally had the Sydney they wanted to see. They had the diagnosis that was acceptable to them. That's my opinion, guys. Anyways, let's listen to the trial where her father's on stand and he talks about this 360 app, which is strange to me, and how he notices that his daughter is not at the college, but at their home. And that doesn't seem right. Again, this is leading up just before that horrible incident.
What prompted you to go home, to leave work and go home?
As I saw in the app, she was home, which I thought was a little bit early.
Okay.
360 life.
The 360 app showed that she was home?
Yes.
If someone on that app comes home, do you get like a little buzz or notification on your phone?
If it's set up, you can.
Okay. So did you just happen to see that on the 360 app, or did it give you like a notification?
I might have got a notification. I don't recall.
Okay. So you get a notification that Sydney's at home.
Okay, let's pause it. So that's really strange, isn't it, to have that app set to alert them, you know, when she goes certain places or however he has it set up for alerts. And the child supposedly did nothing wrong.
When you see that, you go home.
Correct.
Right? And why did you go home?
Just to see why she was home.
Okay. Did you have any concern for her at that time?
Just because Monkey just said she wasn't enrolled, but no, I was just going to go home and see why she was home so early.
Okay. And did you take your phone with you when you went home?
No.
And why not?
I just left it at work so the 360 app wouldn't show me coming home.
So they're all linked on the 360. She's able to view where they're at as well. Who leaves work to go check on a daughter that's not at the college like she's supposed to be? Something tells me there was more going on with Sydney than they share with us. Even stranger is he leaves work, drives to his house, finds his daughter there, and he says, you know what, I'm going to call your mom. So Sydney will learn that her parents can be kind of sneaky and a little deceiving.
Okay. Did you not want Sydney to be able to see that you were coming home?
I would imagine that was my intent.
You come home, and this is, I think, I'm not going to hold you to exact times, sometime maybe around 11:30 or something like that?
I would imagine. I don't know.
So you come home at 11:30, and is Sydney at home?
Yes.
All right. And is anyone else home at this point?
No.
Can you tell the jury, what did she tell you about what was going on?
From my recollection, it sounded, what I understood is she was still enrolled. It was only a couple weeks that she was still going to some classes and still doing her homework on the side.
Okay. So she told you she was essentially still enrolled, but just having some trouble?
I don't know if she used the word trouble, but
again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You tell me. What did she say?
She was, I don't remember the details, but I remember she said she was still going to some of her classes with her friend Lauren.
Okay, am I the only one that finds this strange? So this guy takes off work, leaves his phone. He remembers that, but don't remember the details that he was talking to his daughter about. And it's involving the possibility that her college education is in jeopardy. I don't believe it.
What was, when she told you this, what was your response?
That we would work it out.
Okay. Do you remember telling her, and I know you had a conversation with the police too, do you remember telling her that, you can't run away from your problems, you have to face them?
I said we'd go through, let's get through this semester, and if you needed to take the summer off or go to school, we would work through it. I remember she said, all her friends have their shit together and she doesn't. And I told her, no, that's not true.
She said she didn't. Sydney said, I don't have my shit together, but my friends do.
Yeah. And she didn't know what she wanted to do, it sounded like.
Sure. Do you remember telling her, let's call the school back, get reinstated, something along those lines?
I think I said, let's call your mother.
I'm sorry.
I think I said, let's call your mother.
Okay, and why did you say that?
Brenda was better at things like that than me.
Okay. And you mean by dealing with Sydney or the college or both?
Probably both.
Okay, I feel like there's something missing here, because why would he go through all that trouble to drive to the house to say, let's call your mother?
So is that when, do you call Brenda then?
Yes.
We already heard she was at work at Akron Children's, correct?
Correct.
And did you ask her, hey, there's something going on with Sydney and at the college? Did you ask her to come home?
She said she would come home. She said she's going to talk to Jill and she'll come home. All right.
During this time, the father doesn't see any mental breakdowns. He doesn't see anything that relates to schizophrenia. He doesn't mention anything like that. But there's something in this part of the story that triggers him and breaks him down. What is it?
No, go ahead.
Take your time, sir. Did you stay at home until Brenda got there, or did you leave before she got home?
I left before she got there.
So you went back to work knowing that Brenda was on her way home?
Yes.
To move this a little bit quicker, he says that when he returns to work, his wife texts him and said, I'm in the driveway. He texts his wife and tells her, we need to check and make sure that she's not losing her scholarship. So the parents are concerned about money. They're concerned about the scholarship. That was around 12:30 in the afternoon.
At 12:41, you texted, what did you discuss with Sydney? Do you recall that?
Yes.
Sir, again, I know this is hard, and I'm sorry you're in this position to have to answer these questions. Do you remember receiving a call from Detective Dees, Ms. Ken Dees, that just testified at 12:51, about 10 minutes later?
I remember the phone.
Okay. And he told you that there was an incident at your house that he heard over the radio?
Yes.
And is that when you, do you remember at 12:52 to 12:53 trying to call Sydney and Brenda and not getting any answer?
Yes.
And then at 12:54, while you were actually on the phone with Mr. Dees, that Sydney called you back? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
You don't remember her calling you back?
No.
Okay. Did you remember had that conversation with the Akron police detective?
No. I remember talking to Sydney. I didn't know who initiated the call.
Okay, and I apologize. I didn't mean to confuse you, but you had a conversation with Sydney after Mr. Dees, Detective Dees, already called you.
Yes.
All right. And that's when Sydney told you that Brenda was on the phone with Mount Union.
Yes.
Now, mind you, Sydney had just got through slaughtering her mother. This wasn't a push. This wasn't a punch. This was 30 stabs to her mother's neck. And she's picking up the phone. The college will call back because they are concerned about Brenda because they could hear her screaming. After Brenda was gone, Sydney picks up the phone and pretends to be her mother. She's also picking up the phone for her father. And things are happening way too quickly. And she's going to lie and say that someone broke into their house. She's hysterical. But the people who called from the college didn't hear hysterical. This tells me that Sydney is a very selfish, manipulative young woman. Sydney is not a very good person. Let's just say that.
And that's when you told Sydney that the police were on the way to the house.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's, according to you, that's when Sydney got hysterical and said someone had broken into the house.
Yes.
And then you actually called Detective Dees back to say that, this is legit, something's going on. You told him that.
I don't remember that, but I believe it.
But I'm sorry.
I don't remember calling him, but
okay.
I believe it.
Okay.
Just a moment ago, when you seen Sydney, she was all full of tears, but something really catches her attention here. And what I noticed is she's not in shame as she's trying to appear to be. Instead, she is making eye contact, or trying to make eye contact with her father, and she appears to want to interject. You can see that he's doing everything he can to hold back the emotion that it's killing him to sit in there, and he just can't wait for this to be over with. As far as Sydney, she appears to be sorrowful, but is she really? This is a girl that stayed in hotels and deceived her parents. After killing her mother, she said that someone broke in, and they also tried to coax her into leaving. She can't even fess up and face what she did.
March 3rd of 2020, had Sydney ever seen a psychologist or a counselor?
No.
Okay. And up until that point, you or Brenda never had any concerns about her mental health?
No.
To your knowledge, did Sydney ever share with you or Brenda concerns about her own mental health?
Not with me.
Okay. Did Brenda ever tell you that Sydney had shared anything like that with her?
No.
Sorry.
So here you can see Sydney look at her attorney, and he look at her, and she just immediately turns on the tears as if she's wanting him to cuddle her. She acts like a victim. She doesn't seem to have any remorse. She closes her eye to skip the camera here. She seems to be feeling sorry for herself.
Sir, thank you. I have no more questions for you at this time.
Thank you.
The look on his face here shows you that he's in a lot of pain. Can you imagine having to go to trial because your own child killed your wife or your husband? That must be an awful, confusing feeling sitting in that courtroom knowing that this is the girl that you loved and adored your whole entire life. You were hoping that she would grow and thrive and be a successful adult, only to find out when you face her with a lie. She stabbed you 30 times. Sydney loves to look towards the camera, well, face the camera, not her eyes, and then put on this horrible feel sorry for me look on her face. She's not trying to hide it. Most people would try to hide from the camera. For me, it appears that this girl is very, very spoiled and manipulative. But that's my opinion. How do you feel? Do you think this girl has remorse? Why is she so open to the cameras? So this is part 1. We'll continue to kind of cover this in between all the other stories that we're doing. And we'll start talking about some of her other family members and her grandmother, who was brave enough to let her live with her after taking the life of her daughter. Can you imagine that? What would you do in that situation? Would you allow her to come into your home? So don't forget about these girls. We have Summer Wells, Donita, just to name a few, that are still missing, and the police need your help to find answers. Please share their faces, tell their stories, and I'll see you on part 2. Love you guys. See you guys soon.